What is good, my people, my peeps? How are you guys doing tonight? I thought I'd jump on live just to have a quick discussion. So, this might be all over the place, but it is what it is. Just thoughts that come across my mind. Y'all know how I do. Sometimes I get on here and have these late night discussions with you all. And it was prompted primarily by a movie I just got through watching too, and thoughts that have crossed my mind lately uh, for the past couple of days this week, I guess. So you see the title of this live stream, Is Life a Gilded Cage? In general, a gilded cage that we're in. Now, just a brief description or definition when I say a gilded cage. It's as if you live in a beautiful home and everything is provided for you, but yet and still you can't leave or explore or do anything that would bring you happiness, you know, create, wander outside of that cage. Because whoever puts you in the cage believes that they have created the perfect environment for you. So you can say that as this realm, this earth being the perfect environment, water, air, food that grows freely, perfect. And you're here, you can sustain yourself if capitalism didn't exist, right? You can sustain yourself, but however, you cannot escape this realm because there is a firmament above, right? So basically, the earth can be considered as a gilded cage, just to give you a brief understanding of where I'm getting ready to go with the thoughts that I've been thinking about. I know that as targeted individuals, it is hard to basically trust people because you never know what their agenda is, what their motives are, and if they want to put you in a gilded cage, to observate you, to keep you under surveillance, to have you do and operate as they say. This comes with trauma bonding in relationships. A lot of people stay with particular partners because they have trauma bonded with those partners. Said partner could have been, as a child, abused or raised by a narcissist or just lacking self esteem, and bond with somebody who basically is the same type of person, but one is a little stronger in personality than the other, but they still have the same traumas. And so they have bonded over those traumas, or trauma can be caused, such as domestic violence. And so the person who is receiving the domestic violence will trauma bond with her her abuser, right? And so uh, he or she will tend to stay in that particular relationship, and the abuser will think that they have put that person in a gilded cage, the perfect environment. But the one who is trapped in the gilded cage will soon realize that it is not the perfect environment. And to explore outside of that cage can be scary for the ones who have been trapped in the cage for such a very long time. These are experiments that have been done in laboratories, I would have to say, around the world. And so that's why I bring up this topic tonight. You know, is life a gilded cage? Even when you think about the conversations that are being had regarding marriage and women being put in a gilded cage, for a lot of people lately, I've heard, women should be content to cook and clean and bear children, and that should bring all the joy and happiness to the woman, and then also help out with with you know whatever the spouse needs help out in building up such businesses or whatever. And then let's not even talk about the spouses who want all of that and more wives, right? So we can throw that into the whole concept of the gilded cage. Where is the wife's happiness? Where does that come from? I've heard men speak on, that it's the nature of a man to have several wives, and um, but I've never heard them speak on the happiness, the fulfillment of their spouse, their wives. Never, never heard that, because it gives off the impression, that their wives are less than human, less than feeling beings, that they would not have uh, any kind of emotions associated with their spouses having extra wives, not unless they were raised in that culture. But I see that culture, and what happened in the past biblically is being pushed in our present future, and now in our present and future, right? Something that I would have to say women of today's society in America aren't used to, have never really didn't grow up with that kind of culture, but it's being pushed on them. So are they being pushed into a gilded cage? Gilded cage, you might say? Yes, their house. They might have a home provided. They might have a car. They might have food on the table. The lights are on, the running water, gas is in the vehicle. A gilded cage, everything around them seems to be perfect, but yet and still, they can't stretch their wings and fly. They can't soar because the person who has placed them in that gilded cage believes that is where they belong, right? And I believe that society as a whole, whether it be targeted individuals who are aware of the program, of the observations, of the testing, of the trials that they go through, they pretty much know they are in a gilded cage, although these might not be the words that they use. And they might not feel that it's such a sparkly cage, right? To be placed in isolation or under surveillance. But in a sense, the world seems like it has fallen into this category of a gilded cage. And have you ever sat back and thought, other than being a targeted individual, it, you might not even be aware of those terms, but just as a being, a human being, are you placing people in gilded cages? Are you ciphering off of whatever your benefits are from these people, from your spouse, from your friends? You're ciphering off of their their gifts while you pretend to offer them security, while you pretend to offer them strength and stability when it comes to being an upright person. And you might think that you're that person, you are an upright person, but all the while you have someone confined, and it might look just perfect. But those people in those gilded cages that you place them in can be just as lonely and sad with everything around them looking as perfect as it can be. The perfect house, the perfect spouse, the perfect situation. But who is it perfect for, really? Who? Have you ever asked the person you're with truly how they feel without being upset, without getting angry? And I'm talking, hopefully, to people who can have a balanced conversation and, you know, go back and look at their actions. Not someone who wants to put someone in a gilded cage or wants to control a person's every movement. And cipher off the gifts of said person. A lot of people might think they don't have gifts, but truly everybody's gifts are not the same. So you have them, you may not be aware of your particular gifts. Is life a gilded cage is my title tonight, because as I look around, it seems as if it's a gilded cage, and why people such as myself would rather be by myself, because you can see how people move and operate, right? And you can be in a house with someone in that cage with someone and be truly alone with someone there. They can enter in and out of that cage daily. And even if they're right there in the cage, you're still feeling like you are alone. If you have those feelings, then you are the one that the gifts are being ciphered off of. You are the one who is being captive in a beautiful situation, or it may look beautiful to the ones that are looking inward, or to the one who has placed you in the cage. I've heard, conversations about, oh, you're an older woman, you're gonna die alone. And I look around and I realize that some of these people who say that are not even looking at what's going on in the world today. How these young girls, young women, are choosing not to have mates, are choosing not to have a companion of the opposite sex because they choose not to be placed in a gilded cage. While these mentions of older women dying alone when older women are choosing to be alone, you know, instead of being placed in these confinements, younger women are choosing the same thing. I did a broadcast a few months ago about the Plan B movement over in South Korea, how the women have chose not to have any interactions with men. I mean, none. Conversation, marriage, dating, sexual. They have totally cut men off. They have now created a very serious situation where they won't be able to come back off of procreation to build up. They literally are killing themselves off from women not being heard, women being placed in situations of oppression, a gilded cage. And there's just something about why in the minds of so many, not even speaking on just a relationship, but so many people wanting the control of other humans is so dominant lately. I mean, I'm sure it's been around our entire lives, but for me, it's just blatantly clear that there are so many people who want control. If it's not just one person, they want control of multiple people. And where does that stem from? And what is that going to do to society as a whole? It's just thoughts that I've been thinking about this week. I believe we all are in gilded cages of our own making, or we've been placed there. I was watching a movie like I spoke on earlier. It was about Elvis Presley, and somewhat like a bio of his life. And it's just interesting how, when you look at any range of these celebrities, how some of them become the devil, And some of them always have the devil hanging on to them, right? We can like bash, oh, everybody in the entertainment field is wicked, but I can tell you this: I have met wicked, wicked, wicked people in all walks of society, all walks of society. When I was watching his story, and it's patterns, and it's what people can see in your life. If you want to know if someone has placed you in a gilded cage, understand what they know about you. Understand that. So, as I was watching this movie, as he was coming up, they were dirt poor, right? Lived in a black community as his father got sent away to jail. And, well, we all know Elvis Presley was around black folks. That's no doubt about it. We know his music came from a lot of black artists. But I was just watching and listening to how he grew up, right? And how when his father went away, he became, like, air quotes, the man of the house, and wanted to provide and take care of his mother. And that's what he did, basically. But his mother was suffering because I never knew that he was a twin, right? So his twin brother had died at birth, and his mother always had heartache for the one that passed away. So she was an alcoholic as well, because she was trying to drown away her sorrows of the loss of her first, well, one of the twins, Elvis's brother. I don't know if he was the younger twin or the older twin, but the loss of his brother. Nevertheless, Elvis, you know, was into music, gospel music. Everything that you have heard, basically, it's almost the same story of black artists coming up. Normally, they come up through the church, and then they spread their wings and get discovered, or they're in a band, or some kind of singing group. Somewhat of the same scenario with Elvis Presley, right? And the the guy, the captain, I believe they called him, when he peeped out Elvis, he could see Elvis's weakness. He could see Elvis's wants and desires from watching him before he approached him. There's a lot of people who watch you before they approach you. They try to analyze you, get intel about you before they put you in a gilded cage. So Elvis was approached by this guy who had already had the intel on Elvis, knew he loved his mother, knew he was a religious, had some religious background, knew all of this intel. But he wanted Elvis as the show pony. A lot of these artists are the show ponies for these corporations, these big industry labels. They're just the show ponies that get caught in a trap. And that's what happened with Elvis. Basically, this man left Elvis broke after just running him around in circles until like most of them, wind up in Vegas, right? Caught in a Trap was one of his songs. I don't know, you guys might be too young for his music, but Caught in a Trap. And that song wasn't even about his life. Matter of fact, he didn't even know he was caught in a trap until Vegas. He always wanted to fly out internationally, but the person, his manager, kept him in a gilded cage. That's right. Playing on the heartbreak of him losing his mother, playing on his father, who was not a strong man after coming out of prison, basically letting the decision making be made by his manager, the captain, right? And he was there when Elvis was young. They always seem to get them when they are young, more malleable, easier to manipulate. I wanted to give you that story about Elvis because the captain, his manager, watched him, took intel, and used every bit of his knowledge of Elvis against him while acting like he was for him, being there for him. But in actuality, he was not there for him. He was there for himself. The captain, his manager, the manipulator, caught in a trap, and I can't get out. The words of that song may not have meant what Elvis intended them to mean at the beginning when he wrote it, but were profound at the end of his life. Elvis was young when he passed away, 41 years old. For you all that are 18, 19, 20, when you hear 41, you may think that that is so old. It's almost over the hill. You're almost midway there. 41 is still very young. As I watched this movie, and I know that he also met his wife, who he had Lisa Marie, or Lisa, whatever her name is, the little girl. Um, by he met her young too. I believe he was like in his 20s, and she was 14 when he met her, and wound up marrying her when he was in the military. In the military, so they showed some scenes of their relationship, and it just hit me how, although she understood that he was a superstar, a celebrity, when she left him, and there was a scene where she said, "I'm leaving you." Everything, they had already had Graceland, they already had their little girl Lisa, but she says, "I'm leaving you." He couldn't understand. He thought it was because, are you mad about the other women? Right? That's the first thing that came out of his mouth. Why would that be the first thing? Men. That would come out of a man's mouth. I found that interesting. That was the first response out of his mouth. Is it because of the other women? If that would be the first response out of his mouth, then that would let you know that that would be the first thought that would hurt someone to leave their spouse, right? But this is something that men don't want to, some men don't want to contemplate. But that was not what she said. She said, no, it's not the women that you sneak through the side door. It was the drugs he was taking that was killing him, right? The pills he was popping. And so she was going to leave because she wanted her daughter, their daughter, to grow up in a healthier environment. At the end, when he found out how he was being played, put him, how he was in a gilded cage, like he had put his wife in a gilded cage, a beautiful home. And when he brought her into Graceland, children, furs, coats, money. But that wasn't enough. Happiness, being content with one another, raising their daughter together was what her desire was. You hear so many people have so many ideals, especially people who are looking into other gilded cages that they most likely would never want to be in, but they think that they would. Advice to women: oh, you get a basketball player, football player, they're going to mess around. It's okay. As long as you have the money, the house, the cars. Is it okay? Really? Looking into something that you lack may always look, or you may think it's okay. But being placed in those beautiful situations can bring loneliness. Loneliness can bring depression and then devastation. It's so odd that there's so many circumstances in this world for all of us. So when you look at it, the question is this life a gilded cage? Think about that. Contemplate where you are in life, and the people that are around you. What do they know about you? And how do they move? How do they act? And you'll know, have they put me in a gilded cage? You don't want to be locked in a gilded cage, although they are beautiful. I'm out, and much, much love.